what's the scariest bear experience you've had? And then I want to go into the scariest hunt you've had in general, unless they're both the same.
The scariest bear hunt I've had, I don't know if you watched it on YouTube, it's called Shadow of Death.
I have watched The Shadow of Death. I watched it twice, and I'm like, from YouTube, it's like, all right, that's pretty scary. But I could imagine just being there had to have been way crazier.
I think I probably said it on the film. That wasn't scary at all, at least for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say you downplayed it.
Well, it just wasn't. I mean, I'm not to be prideful, but it's just so real. I suspect that it's probably similar to what a soldier in combat would feel. It's like there is nothing else. There's no fear because there's nothing else to consider. Your mind has nothing to worry about because your deepest fear or worry is at hand. So there is no fear because you're in it. Fear is imaginative. What is it? False evidence appearing real, an acronym for fear. And so when you're in it, the fear is gone.
Varsity Kings podcast, our second virtual podcast. If you guys knew what has gone into creating this podcast, I feel like we might be able to start to relate this to one of Billy's ram hunts. You know what I mean? Where you're trekking 30 miles or whatever from what I've been able to watch. So obviously not, literally speaking, but figuratively speaking, it seems like we've put a lot of work into getting this podcast to work. I guess to give us a little bit of grace, on reflection of my team and myself. We do typically do it in person, but this is 140, 150 episodes in. We're about 2 years in. Special guest, Billy. How do I pronounce the last name? Molls?
Molls, yep.
Billy Molls. And where are you from?
Wisconsin, Northwest Wisconsin.
Northwest Wisconsin. And then you were born and raised in Wisconsin, stayed in Wisconsin?
Yep.
And then you have brothers, right?
Older brother, older sister.
Okay, older brother and older sister. And then is everybody kind of in like a similar field or really in tune with nature? How did you get into hunting, and did that like impact the whole family?
Yeah, well, we grew up on a farm, dairy farmers. My grandpa was a professional trapper, so at the end of basically the fall harvest after deer season, he would leave his family and he'd go to northern Wisconsin and the big swampy country, the big woods, the north woods of Wisconsin, build a log cabin, and then he would trap all winter long. And so then he'd come home in the spring, sell his furs, use that money to buy seed. So basically they did it out of necessity. And my grandpa was a little bit of a kind of a front runner on the photography side of things, and he captured a lot of his lifestyle through photos, and so that always inspired me. Basically just outdoors. We were always outdoors, always working. And then for me, I just wanted to go to the woods, to the lakes, to escape the farm. And then later for me, hunting was the only time that I ever got to see my dad not basically in total farm mode where he's just working sun up to sunset every day. And all life was for us was work. Looking back at it, that was the greatest feather in my cap and my resume, if you will, is that I knew how to work and I was hungry. I was never handed anything. I had to work for everything. And I had a dream. My grandpa said, Billy, if you want outdoor adventure, Alaska is the place you need to go. And that's where I went.
And is that the so when you mentioned the trapping and then your grandpa trapping, is that the introduction in your films on YouTube? Was it muskrat trapping that you were doing?
Yep. So I started with my grandpa. Maybe the earliest memory I probably have. I was probably about 4. I just remember being with him, and he'd point to the shore of the swamp, and he'd ask me if I saw the sign, and I was looking for like a stop sign. But he was talking about was just the track or the mud where a beaver would slide down the land into the water, and then he could place that trap in just one spot, and he knew the animal would step there. He'd put a stick or a log or something, and he knew that animal would step there. And so that fascinated me. And then my dad, when I was 8, he took me muskrat trapping. And when I noticed I was totally immersed and surrounded by nature, it was just like a light switch. I knew I wanted to live my life in the wilderness.
That's crazy. Now, would you say your grandfather or your father, were those two figures in different seasons, were those the most influential people in your life that helped you kind of transition into the hunting world and hunting realm, or were there other individuals that were very influential on molding you into the man that you are today?
My grandpa, I mean, to be honest, I didn't even spend all that much time with my grandpa. It was just his lifestyle, and he did things differently. He did things outside the box, right?
Yeah,
So obviously I spent a lot of time with my dad, but I think more than anything, it was that I was given a lot of latitude. Um, I mean, I was carrying shotguns around all by myself in the woods when I was like 8, 9 years old, off by myself. My parents didn't know where I was. I'd be gone for hours. They just gave me such latitude. And then I think just my imagination, my confidence, and if I'm being perfectly honest and maybe vulnerable, I would say that I felt freedom to just be me when I was in the wilderness and away from anybody. That I was in school and or around the farm. I always had to do whatever my parents told me. When I was in school, I always had to do what the teachers told me. But when I was in the wilderness, I was totally free, and that's what I love.
that's awesome. What would you say growing up? What were some of, or maybe an in particular moment that really kind of, I don't know, shaped your life? A moment that kind of like pivoted you towards who you are today. Can you think of any type of adversity, or even maybe a very joyful moment, something that just occurred that like really kind of put you on the direction that you currently live?
Yeah, yep. I would say a real pivotal moment in my life. I was going through a period of depression. I was in my early 20s. I'd become a hunting guide. That was kind of like my childhood dream, right? I was guiding in Alaska, and I was always a dream of mine to shoot like a record book whitetail with my bow and arrow, right? And this was during that point of depression where I just felt like I wasn't doing anything the way the world was, like my perception of the world. I was doing things outside of the box. And at that point, I'm 23, 24, something like that, been guiding in Alaska for 4 or 5 years. And I really didn't have any big goals or visions of where I was headed from there. So I was kind of like in limbo, kind of lost, right? And so for about 10 years through high school years, I wanted to shoot this record book whitetail. And here I am in my 20s, and I'm just wondering if I did everything wrong. And I mean, that depression got so deep for a time, I would consider putting a gun in my mouth and pulling the trigger minute by minute. But when I was in the wilderness, I always was released from that. But when I'd come home, I'd always come back to Wisconsin in the winter times, help on the farm, and I'd do construction work just to pay the bills, right? But anyways, so I'm 23 years old, and I this great big buck comes in, and I shoot this buck, right, and it runs off, shoot it with a bow and arrow, runs off, but I know I made a perfect shot, and I knew it was going to die. And I remembered thinking, oh my gosh, I did it. I shoot this record book whitetail, and I was so excited for about 3 seconds. And then I realized, Billy, you're still the same person. Nothing's changed. And I realized how the great folly in how much time and energy I put into trying to shoot a deer of a certain measurement, and how that was completely empty. And I would say that was probably the first thing in my life that really shifted my outlook.
And what freed you from that depression? I know you talk about your faith sometimes on your film on YouTube. So was that a moment where you were able to transition to God, or was it just eye opening enough where it's like, all right, fulfillment isn't external but it's internal, and like what did that look like to actually get you out of that depression then?
Yeah, I'd say it probably happened about a year later. I was in the wilderness of Alaska. This is on my Trust the Guide kind of devotional or mini sermons, if you will, that I do around the campfire. I don't remember which one it is, but I wrote a chapter about it in my book. It's called 7 Nights in a Six Pack. I was in the wilderness in the springtime, and this outfitter that dropped me off, it was the only time I ever worked for him. He drops me off, says, I'll have a hunter here for you in 2 days. Well, I don't see him for 5 days, and I've got no communication. I'm running out of food. I mean, I'm fine. I mean, I knew I'd survive. I wasn't nervous about that. But I'm in this depression, and I feel that I'm at rock bottom, right? And so I'm praying. I'm pacing up and down this gravel bar, 237 steps, and I about dug a trench because I just had this nervous energy and this angst, right? is grief and guilt and shame and questions. And I'm just like, God, if you're real, I need direction. You need to give me something to go off of because I'm going nowhere, right? I just felt so empty. And so the outfitter comes in after 5 days, and I'm thinking, oh, great, here's my hunter. We can start hunting. Well, there's nobody in the back seat of the airplane. He hands me a package of pork chops and a 6-pack of beer. And he says, hey, I took your hunter to a different guide, but I'll have another hunter here for you in another 2 days. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So he leaves. I go back to my camp. I just got this little tiny stove, a 1 burner stove and a pan. So I start frying a pork chop, crack open the beer. So meanwhile, this a cow moose and her yearling calf. So this is in May. So they're about ready to have their new calves. Her belly's big and swollen, right? And so she walks across the river, and I'd seen this cow and yearling, 2, 3 times a day, all the days that I've been there. Cow goes across, starts nibbling on the willows, and then she looks back as her yearling is halfway across the river. And then as soon as I saw that cow look back at her yearling, it was boom, light switch moment. Because I recognize that any day now, that cow is going to ostracize her yearling because nature is black and white. There's no gray area in nature. So that cow, when nature tells her, when her instinct tells her, hey, you need to now focus all your energy on your new baby or babies, and you need to get rid of that yearling, it's time for her to go. That cow will ostracize that yearling and have nothing to do with it. And when that happens, that yearling will have to face every brown bear attack or wolves, wolverines, whatever is going to try to kill it. Anything that happens to that yearling, it will never feel sorry for itself. Nobody will ever be there to try to help it, and it will never ever quit because everything in nature strives to maximize its potential until it dies, period, without exception. And so I I got the message that I needed through the language that I best understand, which I've always been fascinated with, which is nature. And 2 years of depression was gone just like that. I just told myself, Billy, there's your rifle because it's laying right beside me when you're in bear country, right? And I'm like, you either pick it up, stick it in your mouth, pull the trigger, or you get on with life. And it was that simple.
Wow. What do you think caused the depression? Do you think it? I don't want to answer for you, but I guess what do you think caused the depression?
Uh, Shame, guilt, insecurity, fear. Yeah, probably seeking, probably trusting the world more than I trusted myself.
Yeah.
Because I kind of thought I always had an edge to me. I went through school and I always, I don't know that I was like totally disrespectful, but I never could really go along with school. It never made any sense to me. I mean, I did fine in grades, but I was kind of rebellious.
Yeah.
My dad was a little bit of a hard ass, no doubt about that. I love my dad, and he had we lived a stressful life. It was hand to mouth.
Yeah.
But always working. I mean, we were always doing 2 days of work every day, and we were always 3 days behind. I mean, we just had to pay the bills. We were always overdrawn at the bank. So there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of anxiousness. I think that's part of the reason, honestly, why I went to the wilderness, because I wanted to escape that stress and the angst that was in our life. But my parents, they just weren't quitters. They would not quit. My mom worked 60 hours a week as an office manager at a local feed mill. She milked the cows 2 times a day. She kept up on the house, cooked and cleaned. I mean, my parents, they worked the job of, my mom worked the job of 2 men. My dad worked as much as 3 men. My brother and I, by the time we were 12, 14, we were working harder than, I know we were working way harder than the average man.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And it served me, but there's a balance to everything, right? There's a yin to every yang, but that's hard, man. Another thing with hunting is I loved patience as a part of it. It's a vital part of it. And hunting was the only time that, I could ever really relax,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Your YouTube hunts make these hunts probably look way funner than they actually are because you're editing, or your camera crew is editing. The one hunt I heard you say it was like 28 miles for a ram hunt that you guys were doing, and I don't know if that's average. You know what I mean? Is that sound like an average? Is that something average when you're hunting those? Is it the Doll ram?
Yeah, dull sheep. Yeah. 28 miles, that would be like a really long day. That would be a very short hunt. I've had hunts where we've gone over 80 miles. I've had one hunt. I mean, I don't know. I mean, just going off the map, I mean, we were pushing 100 miles.
And how are you convincing these? Because I mean, I listen to a lot of David Goggins. I don't know. There's another bow hunter I really like. His name's Cameron Haynes. I don't know if you've heard of him. And these
Oh,
guys,
yeah.
these are exquisite individuals. But when I'm watching your hunts, it looks like the average guy going out there is probably his 50s or 60s. What are you? How are you getting them to go? I'm young and in shape, and I'm like, oh, I could do one of these hunts, but I think I would be miserable. You know what I mean? Just the because my body, I'm not used to. I think one time I did my mom sent me, I real quick on my story. So basically grew up, my mom raised us 2 3 jobs, and I started off in Little Rock, Arkansas. I was born on I call it a farm, but we raise Tennessee Walkers, so not like an actual farm, just horses. But when they split up, moved up with my mom. She was from Pennsylvania, worked 2 3 jobs, and she figured because there was no man in the house, I needed to be. I was just me, and I got a little sister. She figured I needed to be manlier, so she some type of man influence put me in the Boy Scouts. So there was hiking and the packs and everything like that, and then there was in addition to that, there's some other thing, but they made us do like a mock military type of hike. I was a bad kid, so I look back now, definitely was some type of punishment camp she sent me to, because it was probably 4 or 5 miles, but it's that military style pack, and it's like a 40, probably I imagine I was probably 12 years old or something. It was probably like a 40-pound pack. But I imagine if you're packing out some of these massive animals, packing out a moose, even though some of those Dall sheep look massive, going on Google and looking at like some of the different sizes and things like that. Being 50 years old, packing that out, already 60 miles into a hunt, and then having to go up and down once or twice, like you've got to be the most motivational person out there. You know what I mean? I can see you're in shape, but I'm looking at some of these guys, and some are like, I got bad knees and I got bad hips, and I'm like, how is he getting these guys to do it? You know what I mean? Because you guys aren't just sitting there, and it's some of those hunts you can just buy, and it's like a farm. It's like a farm of deer or whatever. They just have a big buck, just you lure it in. Doesn't look like you guys are luring anything
No.
in.
No, we're not doing that. We try to minimize the amount of miles that they have to travel. And obviously, you can't do that with everybody. I mean, when I say 80 miles, those are pretty extreme, you know. And there was one where I dare say we were pushing 100, but that was only one. And that was a guy that had incredible mental fortitude and physically strong. So, yeah, the average guy's not doing that. I would say the average hunt is probably about 30 to 40 miles. But here's what it is you're devoting all your effort to that one thing, right? And then the other thing is efficiency is the art of doing. That's what I always say. No matter what it is, the art of it is efficiency, right? And so you don't want to climb the mountains anytime you don't have to. So that's a big thing. Climbing the mountain, that's a big thing. Knowing the direction to go, through experience, I know that anything green, if you're looking ahead going across a valley, if it's green, it's wet, right? So that's going to be harder walking. I want to go to the red or the gray. That's where the firmer pack is, and all those little tips and tricks. That's what I love about guiding is I can take my 25 years of mistakes and then take that 60-year-old man, and I have the discernment, the instinct, and the wisdom to, instead of going 70, 50, 60% on my stocks, I can go 80 or 90%. So that old guy with two artificial knees, he only has to climb the mountain one time. But we're hiking through the valleys and spotting the game, knowing when, okay, right now, noon to 5 p.m., the rams are probably bedded, and so they're using their 10 power vision. If we're hiking around now, they're going to spot us. We want to go get up at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're feeding, and they're less likely to spot us coming. And so you use all these little minute details and things that I've learned from nature, because as a hunter, first and foremost, you're a student of nature. And so you want to just put, just like business, just like anything, you want to stack all the odds in your favor that you possibly can. But then the other part of it is you just got to work. And then you got to ride that balance of, okay, when the art of hunting is the balance of patience and the balance of aggression. And you only find that balance by doing. There's no hacks. You have to do that. That's got to be real world. You got to figure that out for yourself. You can learn from others, but at some point you just got to apply it and make mistakes, go through adversity. Adversity is one of two things. It's either cement or it's a wedge, right? And adversity, that's what makes us who we are. Adversity is what gives us life. That's what teaches us. It's how we grow, builds our character, builds our perseverance. And through those adversities, that's where we have something to give others.
Absolutely, it's fire. I want to kind of transition as we're talking about the hunts and getting further into the hunts. You had said brown bear, the Kodiak bear. I'm over here thinking like, man, are these not? When I'm watching them, like these bears look very similar. I'm looking for like differences, and you know what I mean. I'll hear you talk like, oh, these tips, the ear tips, or they might be blonder, or different things like that. I'm like, what variations are there? And come to find out, the Kodiak is just the island in Alaska, and do they have a better like or just a larger nutritional supply? So a Kodiak bear would technically be bigger because are they eating moose or what are they? What's their nutrition that varies from a typical brown bear?
Yep. So a brown bear and a grizzly bear are the exact same animal as well. Basically, a
Wow.
brown bear lives nearer to the coast, and so their diet is primarily salmon, and then it's going to be more temperate near the coast, so they're not going to hibernate as long. So a grizzly bear is typically more aggressive because they're digging roots, they're digging for squirrels, killing moose, caribou. A brown bear can and will as well. Moose calves are very easy calves. That's kind of what they're hunting primarily. A grizzly bear has to be more opportunistic, right? So yeah, brown bear gets much bigger. It's basically just I think it's a 60-second parallel, more or less. There's some deviation there. A bear south of it is a brown bear. He takes one step north of the 60-second parallel. That brown bear just became a grizzly bear.
Wow.
So in the interior, it gets much colder. There's places on the coast where it'll get down to maybe 20, and then the interior of Alaska can get 80 below. So those bears just have a much harder life. And what's amazing is a brown bear, he'll grab a salmon in the peak of a spawn, a smart old brown bear. He'll eat the skin of the salmon, the eggs if it's a female, and he'll bite the brains, eat the brains out of the fish, and then he'll leave the actual flesh of the fish laying there because he knows that there's more fat, nutrients, and protein in those parts of the fish than there actually is the flesh, right? But and how that bear knows that? Because he's been hungry, right? When
Yeah.
you get hungry, when I'm on these sheep hunts, you might we get hungry and we create, oh, I want a cheeseburger, I want pizza, right? When you get really hungry, it gets elemental. You want fat, you want salt, you want
Yeah.
protein, you want sugar, you need hydration, right?
Yeah.
Those bears have been hungry. So now you've got this dead salmon laying there on the ground. You think, oh, what a waste. Well, birds, eagles, weasels, fox, raccoons, or not raccoons, I guess, but wolves will come by and eat it. But what doesn't get eaten, it goes into the soil, right? And then that fertilizes the grass, the willows, the alders, which the roots go deeper into the soil, which line the bank of the river, which prevents erosion of the river, which brings life right back to the salmon that need that river to survive. And that's what, brings life to everything, right?
Yeah.
So everything in nature is connected. It's not a chain, it's like a spider web. It's all intricate, right? And every organism is just a tiny strand, and you break one strand, the integrity of the entire web is compromised. And we're like that in life. We're all here to serve one another through the life of every organism in nature. Its purpose is to give life to another organism, and that's our purpose here in life. That's what I believe.
No, I completely agree. And I'm thinking when I'm watching these hunts and different things like this, and I got a long term vision. I'm in finance, so that's why I got the suit on and everything like that. One of my best friends and one of my top guys in my company. His name's Justin. He's from Grand Junction, Colorado, and they hunt a lot of elk out there. I don't think his dad's been on an elk hunt. I think he's been on a couple elk hunts, but we're talking about just a vision. All I've done is small game hunting. You know what I mean? Not having anybody there to like help me. I think when they split up, I was 9 or 10. So small game hunting for me, a majority of my life, but having a vision of, doing some elk hunts and then long term though, coming up to Alaska and hopefully being able to do some of those really cool hunts like a moose and the Dall sheep, the brown bear. Like I was telling you, our first try around, I really got fascinated with bears because I went to my pap took me before he passed away. My mom's dad took me to a NRA event, National Rifle Association event in Pennsylvania, and I think I had to have been probably 15, maybe 14 or 15, and got to tag a black bear, sedated, but you know what I mean. From growing up and being like, I don't know why I was so scared about bears in Arkansas. You rarely hear about bears in Arkansas. Maybe a black bear spotting occasionally, and they're not going to be. I can't imagine they're big in Arkansas. You know what I mean? Maybe a couple 100 pounds, like a big dog, but I was scared of bears. So it was cool to tag a bear and be at that event now, working with different guys that have different experiences, things like that. But I remember eating a lot of rabbit growing up while we were there, rabbit and squirrel, and my mom being able to cook that. But watching your show is really cool, because some of those shows between you and Ranella, I find a lot of joy, because it's like legitimate hunts. You know what I mean? So it's like watching you guys hunt the things that you're doing yourself, and then also incorporating the faith. You know what I mean? That's something I highly respect, and I try to incorporate it in my business and my life, especially just in today's day and age. I feel like a lot of young people, there's not a lot of good, like, moral standards for people to kind of hold themselves to, and I'm open in regard to what people want to believe in and things like that. But I love the faith, and I love the relatability, and I can imagine, listening to some of those hunts and being like dehydrated, but then adding dehydration. Hearing one of your testimonies, I want to say you're talking about dehydration, and your feet were, I think, messing up, and your back was hurting, and you spent a day or two just praying to God. And what is that? Am I kind of butchering that story?
No, you're pretty well spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, and listening to that, man, I get, for those who aren't faithful, I bet they go on one of those hunts, and they start to reconsider or reimagine. You know what I mean? So you go 60, 80 miles on a low diet, and you start thinking about higher powers, and thinking about God, and something out there. You know what I mean? Or my next question is, has the hunter ever been the hunted? You know what I mean? So it's like I don't know how I'm seeing these massive bears, and people are always like, bear, you got to stay away. Bears are very dangerous. But I'm looking at, and you said the brown bears aren't as ferocious as the grizzly bears, but I'm still thinking it's like they'll spot you guys from a half mile or even a mile out. Their sensory abilities is incredible, and start to avoid you. But knowing that there's probably not any really, like, true predator out there. Is it just the wisdom that they have from experience of hunters coming and obviously being able to take them out?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, a lot. Yeah. So what we're seeing, like in the western U.S., a lot more bear attacks, right? That's because those bears have lost inherent fear of man, right? I guarantee you, there's more bears being shot than what probably people know of. People probably, there's some fear, right? There's some people shooting those bears and probably not saying anything about it, but I guess that's beside the point. But what's happening is those bears aren't hunted, and so they're led to believe that man basically means an easy meal. Bears will absolutely hear gunshots. I've seen it, and they will go to the gunshots, right? Because they know, okay, there's probably an animal down, and now they can get an easy meal, right? So these bears that we're hunting, they have inherent fear of man. Brown bear, I mean, if you ever want to go on a real hunt, I think go on a Kodiak bear hunt and go for 15 days, because I know enough about the business world, right? It's very hectic, it's very fast paced. You got to drive, you got to work hard. But in the wilderness of Alaska, that will get you killed, right? It's a total, like, I guess, paradigm shift, if you will, right? Um, but a bear, he'll wind you from 5 miles away. His sense of smell is 7 times stronger than a bloodhound's. And somebody gets abducted in New York, and 12, 24 hours later they'll bring a bloodhound in, and a bloodhound can discern the scent of the getaway vehicle from thousands of other vehicles a day later, and that brown bear's sense of smell is 7 times better than that dog's. You ain't gonna fool his nose. But in the Arctic, when we see the bears, 50% of the bears, when they see us, they come to us, because anything that moves up there, because there's so little human interaction, is food to them. Their first thought is, they're not used to, the only predator is other bears, right? Now the brown bear in the coastal regions, they're more used to people. They've got fishermen around. They're smelling human. They know, hey, we got to need to stay away from humans. But you get in the interior, the very remote parts of Alaska, those bears can be very, very, very aggressive. And typically, it's the younger bears, ones that are 3 to 6 years old, where they're not really, they're just kicked away from mom, they're hungry, that they haven't honed their hunting and survival skills yet, so they have to take more risk, right? It's just like somebody in the financial world, you're 20, 30 years in and you've got a lot more security. You don't need to take risk. Why would you want it? You've got you know what works and what doesn't. You're less likely to take risks. Where those younger bears, they have to take more risks to survive. Those are the ones that you'll typically have the most trouble with. But obviously, you come up in a sow and cubs or a big bear if he's guarding a kill or something. He ain't gonna want to back down.
Wow. What's the scariest bear experience you've had? And then I want to go into the scariest hunt you've had in general, unless they're both the same.
No, the scariest bear hunt I've had. I don't know if have you watched it on YouTube. It's called Shadow of Death.
I have watched The Shadow of Death. I watched it twice, and I'm like, from YouTube, it's like, all right, that's pretty scary. But I could imagine just being there had to have been way crazier. The Shadow of Death episode, I've watched it twice.
Yeah, and I think I probably said it on the film. That wasn't scary at all. At least for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say you
Knock on wood. Not
downplayed it.
not Well, it just wasn't. I mean, not to be prideful, but it's just so real. I suspect that it's probably similar to what a soldier in combat would feel. It's like there is nothing else. There's no fear because there's nothing else to consider. Your mind has nothing to worry about because your deepest fear or worry is at hand. So there is no fear because you're in it.
Yeah,
Fear is imaginative. What is it? False evidence appearing real, an
yeah,
acronym for fear,
yeah.
right? And so when you're in it, the fear is gone. The scariest event, like where I actually thought I was going to die, and maybe I don't know if you've watched this one. It's called Face to Face.
Sounds familiar.
It's on YouTube. We almost drowned in a river. I had a client fall down in the river, and I went to fish him out. And I thought he was kind of floating down the river like a rubber ducky at the fair. Right?
Yeah,
And I went to grab him, and the river. As I was pulling, I was foolish as I tried to pull him straight out. I should have been angling down with the current and kept pulling him, but in my inexperience and my haste, I just tried to pull him straight. Well, as I pulled, and then he got to be perpendicular to the current, and then once he started going downstream, well, then the current was so strong and it just pulled me in with him. And his lifelong fear, he almost drowned as a kid, so his whole life he has been afraid of drowning.
wow.
And the old adage, what you fear you create. So I got pulled in with him, and I just knew right then, it's like, okay. And he went into shock, and he was kind of yelling at me. We're face to face, and I'm yelling at him, trying to get his pack off.
Yeah,
Then the river narrows down to this narrow torrent, and I knew if we got to there, we are probably going to die. Don was almost assuredly going to die because he can't swim. And we're face to face, and he's just yelling, "Is this the end? Is this the end?" I'm yelling, "Get your pack off! Get your pack off!" But I think in that moment, just fear. Like he's like, "Holy smokes! All my life, I've thought about death by drowning, and
wow.
here it is. It's actually happening, right?" So he just kind of becomes overwhelmed, and I just remember, just like, oh, he's going into shock, and it just happens crystal clear, like super fast, boom, and just all these thoughts go race through your mind, and I just remembered, like, all right, Billy, he's in shock. If you hold on, you might die. And this is a decision. I knew that I could get away if I let go. And I just thought of my wife, thought of my kids. My wife's face just flashes in my eyes, and my kids. And I remember thinking, I'm as good with God as I'm ever going to be. And if now's my time, it's my time. But if Don dies, I'm going to die with him. And I mean, after that, there was no hesitation. I was like back in the present moment. And I mean, again, that's just a microsecond, all those thoughts go through, and then just kind of swim for shore, and basically right at the lip of where it goes down into this rapid channel, if you will, I felt gravel under my feet, because at this point we're just
Yeah,
we're swimming. And Don had a pack on, probably 50 pounds. I had already gone across, so I had my pack off. And so as I'm kind of swimming, side stroking, trying to hold on, I'm sure Don was running whatever he could do. I felt gravel under my feet. I take about 2 steps right before the lip of this deep pool, and we just kind of lunge forward, and fortunately we landed in about kind of like 2 feet deep of water, maybe a foot and a half, to where the current no longer had us. But I mean, that was like, I believed that we were going to die. I wasn't going to go down I was going to go down fighting, but I figured that one I was going to die. And that was all because of mistake I made, because of pressure. I knew better. It was a series of events that led us to that position. I put my client into that position. And I had 17, 18 years of experience at that point, but I let the pressure get to me. I knew the river was coming up. It's kind of a long story, but I didn't pull the plug soon enough because the pressure of getting my hunters, we had 3 hunters on that trip. Typically, you have one on one. And so now you've got 3 times the animals to kill in the same amount of time. That just puts more pressure on the guide. And I didn't have enough discernment and enough wisdom to say, no, boys, we ain't going across the river today because it's rising too fast. We got to stay on this side of the river. I didn't do that. And a series of events led to me. There was multiple times where I could have pulled the pin, but I didn't. And it almost cost a man his life.
Wow.
Almost cost 2 guys their lives.
Yeah, that's insane. And it reminds me, I read, I think it was fourth quarter last year. I read Cam Hanes' book. I think he dropped a book, and maybe it was the first quarter. I don't know. But I remember him mentioning his mentor had passed away, and I feel disrespectful not recalling the gentleman's name. But I think
Roy Roth.
Roy, yes, and it was
Yep.
was it a sheep hunt he was doing, or maybe it was I don't forget what they're called in New Zealand. They real high in the elevation. They're like sheep too. I think it starts with an I or something. Is it tar or no tar?
Tar.
I
Yep.
think you did a tar hunt too. I think I watched you went. You actually went. You weren't the guide. You went with a guide that time.
Correct.
That
Yeah. Roy is probably hunted in New Zealand, I suspect, but I'm 99%. I'm 99.9% sure. Yeah, he died on a Dall sheep hunt in Alaska,
and it was the
as my
elevation.
understanding. Just rough, rugged terrain, and
Have you ever had
made one
scares
mistake.
with the terrain and how high you guys get up and things?
Yeah, I mean nothing, nothing crazy. I mean, there was times looking back that especially when I was young, I should have not brought my clients there. There was a couple of things. That hunt that I went on in New Zealand, that was pretty steep, sketchy terrain,
Yeah.
but nothing, nothing close. Yeah, tons of spots where if you fell, you were dead. I mean, do that all the time, but I mean, I never had anything. Um, I never went over. Yeah, I just as I've gotten older, I've taken fewer risks. When I was young, I took some pretty stupid risks. Been blessed that nobody got hurt while I was doing that. But yeah,
What's been your favorite hunt?
like one specific hunt or like one species.
Um, Both, either, whatever comes to mind.
Okay, I would say my favorite animal to hunt is grizzly bear or brown bear. If I had to choose one, it would probably be coastal brown bear. The reason being is it tests every facet of your skill set. And so you have to be completely rounded as a hunter. You have to have experience, you have to have discernment, you have to have patience, you have to have physical prowess to be successful, particularly to target a big mature boar, because you might see 40 bears in a day. And so you have to know the difference. If you're trying to get a 10-foot bear, which is kind of the holy grail, you've got to know the difference between, it's easy to tell the difference between a 7-foot bear and a 10-foot bear, but can you discern the difference between a 9-foot bear and a 10-foot bear, 9.5 and a 10-foot bear? And then, obviously the danger element of it. So I love that challenge, and it's a grind. It is mental and physical. So I love that. Favorite hunt that I've ever been on. Actually, I'm doing a film about it now. Or it might be, that's probably the most transformative hunt that I've ever been on. And to give you the long and short of it, it's this guy. He ministered to me, a Christian guy, and I don't know is that he ever spoke a verse of the Bible to me in 15 years. And then his son starts. He's a pilot, and then his son comes and he starts flying with him. And so, long story short, the son I know is a Christian dude, and he crashes his airplane. And how he responded and how he handled that crash, it that made me. I remember as we were flying out at the end of that day. Long story. We're putting this film together. It's going to be 3 hours long. I mean, it's an epic tale. To go back, what Kurt told me one time, we were flying in the Brooks Range. He said we were excited beginning of the season. I'm heading into the bush for a month, And he just says, "Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it, Wild Bill?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Yeah, just look at those mountains. That's God staring you right in the face." And it just kind of caught me. I kind of knew what he was talking about, but I knew I didn't know what he knew, right? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of don't necessarily see God. I get that God created that, right? And I bet you I've replayed that over and over and over in my mind 10,000 times in all the years that I've been in Alaska, just looking at the mountains, and I'd hear his voice. That's God staring me right in the face. So, anyways, I know Kurt, I know his character, and I know there's something different about him. The way he handles himself, the way he talks about other people, treats other people, his work ethic. I paid attention to Kurt for 15 years because I knew he had something that I didn't have and what other people didn't have. So 15 years later, Isaac starts flying with him. I can see the same thing in Isaac. Isaac crashes his plane. We get out. His leadership and his humility and how he handled the situation was so powerful, right? And the Bible says that the meek shall inherit the earth. And a lot of people think that meekness is
Yeah.
weakness, and that is not at all the case. And the way he handled that situation totally flipped that hunt around. We all got out of there that day. It was like midnight, and I'm flying out with Kurt. I'm in the back seat of the Super Cub, and I'm staring at his bald head. And I recognize the reason why Isaac, or at least in part, why Isaac is who he is because he had Kurt as his father to be there to mentor him, right? And I remembered I told Kurt, I said, "Kurt, there is no accolade, there is no award that any, because I'm a young father at this point that this happened, that any child could attain that should make you more proud than what you should be of your son today." I said, because what I saw right there, I know what I saw. I saw a man of God. And I said, that's what, when I started reading the Bible when I was in the wilderness, I recognized that everything is in that book is in him. And I said, that that I want that. And I knew that I needed that in my life as a father, as a person. I needed to have that. And I got it written here right on the trim of my window here in my cabin. Greater is he who is in
And in
me
the world.
than he who is in the world.
Amen.
Okay, do you mind if I share a little bit about my faith?
I
About a
love it,
minute?
man. I love
Okay.
that's my go-to.
All right. Perfect. So I when if you ever watch my Trust the Guide episode, or yeah, Trust the Guide episode 1, I give my testimony, but I'll so people could watch that there. But that's what I recognize when Kurt told me, "You see those mountains, Wild Bill? That's God staring you right in the
Yeah.
face." As a Christ follower, I don't like to use the term Christian because that's so
Yeah.
watered
I'm the
down in
same
our
way.
society that it's almost meaningless,
Yeah.
I believe. Okay, but what I saw in the betting fields was that they are true Christ followers, and I could see Jesus' spirit in him. Kurt said, "You see those mountains? That's God staring you right at the face. That's the Creator, right? The creation is undeniable." Romans 1:20 said, "For the God's invisible attributes are clearly seen by what is created, that man is without excuse." And my whole life was like, okay, I can believe in God, but where does Jesus fall into all this, right? And when I finally just came to surrender to Him, this conviction, and we're convicted not out of guilt. We're convicted by God's love and his mercy and his abundance and his unmerited favor in our lives. That's what convicted
Yep.
me. And that's in Romans chapter 2, verse 4. Is this that his loving kindness we realize that our best, our own good deeds are filthy
Yeah.
rags to God. The God that created all this, we're not going to impress him by what we've done,
Yeah.
by anything that we can accomplish on our own. And then once that, for me, it was just guilt and shame that just riddled me. And then once I accepted Christ and the Holy Spirit, I'd heard about it, and I didn't even know what I was doing. All I just said that day is I just got down on my knees and I just said, "God, my wife and my unborn child were 3,000 miles away, and my wife was in
Yeah.
labor, and there I was in the wilderness. I'm just like, you fool." And I just said, "God, if anything has to happen today, take my life, kill me right here and now, because I don't deserve the life you've given me. And if anything bad has to happen, I want you to take me." And that's exactly John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whomsoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. There's no greater way for God to show his love for mankind than to send his one and only son to die, because everything in nature would fight to the death to protect its offspring. And that's how nature perpetuates itself. And I was ready to die for my wife and my unborn child in that moment. And then all of a sudden, it was like John 3:16, everything came to life for me. And I just, and here's the thing, is God did just what I asked him to do. He took my life.
Yeah.
There was a dividing line. John chapter 3, verse 3 says that man cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven unless he is born again. And that's exactly what happened that day. I was convicted of my sin, all the things that I've done wrong. You name a commandment, I've probably broken it,
Yeah.
right? And I still fall short to this day. There is no doubt about that. But it was a dividing line, and I'm like, holy smokes. The gospel of Jesus Christ is real. There was no longer any doubt. And then another thing our pastor used to say, and I didn't grow up in the church at all. I went to church, right? But I do remember a quote that Philippians 4:7, that the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, would guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Once I experienced that peace, which surpassed all understanding, I knew exactly what it was. And again, there's no other way to describe it. There's no other way to describe. Like, I remember specifically recognizing my life will never be the same. It cannot be, right? And so then I heard God's still small voice, and he said, share this. And I struggled and I wrestled with God because I was afraid. Through the years, I've been afraid to do that through my films. So I look at it as like what Meat Eater is to hunting and meat, I am to hunting and faith, right? So I believe that God was with me when you asked me at the beginning who influenced me, my grandpa, my dad. I honestly, I humbly believe that God called me.
Yeah.
Romans 8:28 written on my ceiling. If we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Kurt and Isaac Bedingfield came to me for a reason. They reflected a light. They handed me a light. And it's my job. And I'd imagine that's part of why you're doing this podcast. You want to take the things that you've learned and you want to serve other people, because that's the only true fulfillment. I don't know, you had whatever you're saying was like giving something. You said it earlier.
Identifying fulfillment not externally but internally.
There,
Yeah.
perfect, exactly. And the Bible says that it's more blessed to give than receive. That's why I like guiding. I've never shot a big game animal for myself in Alaska. I wanted to as a young man. I wanted to shoot my own sheep. I just became a guide because I figured I couldn't afford to hunt there anyway.
Yeah.
We grew up poor. And now, 25 years later, I wouldn't even, if I'm going to go hunting in Alaska, I want to guide somebody, because I know I'd rather take my mistakes, my knowledge, my experience, and bless somebody else with it and see their joy and their satisfaction, because they're going to get way more out of it than I would. I would almost feel guilty, to be honest. Alaska doesn't owe me anything. But yeah, I don't know what your question was, but I think we were talking about the greatest hunt. Yeah, so that was probably my greatest hunt because it molded me. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'd be had it not been for that hunt. It was so gripping and so powerful. So the title of that hunt or that film is going to be We Saw Jesus. Because what we saw as a Christ follower, and you're indwelled by the Holy Spirit, his spirit lives in you. And you've still got to wrestle out the dross, if you will. Fire comes and and it boils gold, right? The dross, the impurities boil to the top. So you're not immune. And a lot of times you start following Christ, you're going to have more hardships and more adversities, right? Because if you have light, darkness doesn't want to come to the light lest their evil deeds be exposed. And so you're discerning in your old flesh, your old man, your old nature. I still have pride, I still have selfishness. And so it can definitely be a struggle, and that's where you've got to surrender to God and trust that when we are weak, he is strong. And you got to take it on the chin sometimes, and you've got to turn the other cheek. And that's not what the world tells you. So you got to be pretty strong in that conviction. And the biggest thing that I've learned in 25 years of Alaska, 8 years of my life lived in a tent in the wilderness, is this: humility.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, like how that's got to wear you down, and you come to faith because you realize I can't do it. It is going to break you down. If you have any weakness in Alaska, the wilderness will expose it. Like you, I mean, I can tell you work out, right? You're really fit. All right, if we went to the gym, you would kick my
Yeah.
butt,
We went
right?
to Alaska. You'd kick
that
mine.
that's 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 your world,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I mean, I look like a wimp, right? But I've been hiking the mountains for a while. I'm pretty good at that. When we go up the mountain with slippery shale rock, I'm gonna walk up there like a goat. And
You flying
most
down.
guys, they don't have that balance. They haven't done it. Like they're going to be
Yeah.
exhausted. And I won't, a guy that's done it won't even be breathing hard because it's like for them, their balance is so finely tuned that it's not even work. But the guy that's never done it before, he's fallen down for every 10 steps he takes, he's fallen down 9 of them. And that just wear him out. Right. And so, yeah, it's just, we've all got a calling. We've all got a
Yeah.
purpose. The book of Genesis says that man's created in God's
Yeah.
image. Each and every one of us is unique, and we have a unique purpose to cast out into the world. But what is social media? What does the world tell you? The world wants us to
Yes.
conform. Romans 12, verse 2 says, "Do not conform to the
But be
world, but be
transformed.
transformed by the renewing of your
Yeah.
mind." That's where a lot of my depression was coming from. Is I was caught. I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
vision. The Bible says where there is no
People
vision,
perish.
people will perish. And so I'm seeing everybody else out there doing things different than me. And I was starting to believe that, man, I screwed it up. I got it all wrong. Do not conform, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And Jesus said this. The Bible can be summed up into this: the law of the prophets. So the summary of the Bible is this: love God above all things, love your neighbor as ourselves. And what does the world tells us to do? The world is trying to get us to love ourselves, because as long as we're loving ourselves, we are of no use to God. We're of no use to Him. We're of no use to our neighbor. And I've wasted plenty of time, and I still waste time. There's no doubt about it. But the only true joy and fulfillment that I give is just trying to improve the lives of others. That's about all that we can do. That's all that's worthwhile, really. That's true fulfillment.
I agree. 1,000%. Your camera froze on me. I don't know if it's still. I can still hear you though. That's all that matters. Oh, there you go. Man, that's so valuable. I think for me personally, my favorite part of this podcast will definitely be the sharing of the faith and really just hoping that it touches somebody. You know what I mean? I just hope it. There's seeds. One thing I have been talking about in my business just this past week is you reap what you sow, and I love something that's been on my mind. My sister's been sharing it with me. Is Galatians 6:9. I'm not as good at quoting the Bible as you are, but I know loosely with Galatians 6:9. It's basically in due time you're going to reap the harvest. Just keep sowing the right seeds and don't grow disheartened, because in due time you're going to reap the harvest. And I think that applies to every faucet and every area and aspect of life, especially when it comes to hunting, when it comes to business, when it comes to relationships, your personal life, family life, whatever it might be. Um, I hope this touches somebody and it plants the seeds in their heart and their soul, and they realize the seeds that they're dealing and utilizing or have access to in their life, that they're able to, if they keep pursuing and nourishing, they're going to be able to harvest. One thing I want to hit on though is you said in 25 years you actually haven't done a hunt for yourself in Alaska.
No,
Wow.
no, I've always just been guiding. Yeah.
That's incredible. But do you ever find time to hunt for yourself, or because you guide so much, like do you even hunt in the state? Or I guess Alaska is our states, but do you hunt in Wisconsin or get some deer for yourself?
Yep. I'll shoot a deer or two every year. My young daughters are 11 and 12 now, so they're starting to hunt. My 12-year-old, she shot a doe last year. That was enough meat for us.
Yeah,
So I'll do a little bit. I'm going to start doing a little bit more. I'd like to think, but you're exactly right. And again, what does the world tell us? This is something I just recently hired a couple employees, and so I'm telling them it's like we're in a position, we've been blessed that we're able to pay the bills, right? I'm like, let's not focus on growing that. Let's just focus on sowing, because the world, we're led to, I mean, right from I went to public school, it's like get a job, right? And I always thought, well, it's not really, hey, this is the way you're going to benefit people or add value to the world or help people. This is how much money you will make if you do this. So the world is just teaching us to reap, right? We spend so much energy seeking to reap. If we just sow, if we just focus on sowing, the harvest is
Wonderful.
it's going to overflow. It's going to be there by default. It's like, do you believe God's word? And that's just a law of nature. People can kind of believe that without reading the Bible. And so yeah, we don't have to. And there's times where we kind of need to. Don't get me wrong, but if we just sow, the harvest is sure to
Yeah.
come. So if you can get to that place, I get it. You got to eat. Matthew 6:33 says that seek ye first the kingdom of God and His
Yeah.
righteousness, and all things will be added unto you.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other thing is, this is the beauty of the wilderness of Alaska. Is I've been on hundreds of hunts. Right. Some adversity will come that you've never experienced before, and you got to figure a way to get out of it. Right. And when you go through that adversity, it brings you down to that elemental level that I was talking about. You realize the things that truly matter, that that are really important. Right. But that's what makes you efficient. That's where the growth is. That's where you recognize, that's where you pay attention.
Mm.
Right, is in that adversity. That's what separates the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. And then those lessons that you learn in that adversity, that's what fuels you for years to come. You can never take that away. When you learn that hard lesson,
Yeah.
you're going to learn more in your failures than you do your successes.
1,000%.
So that's what I love about it, is that it is extreme and you will be reduced. And if I could maybe mention one more thing. I can stay as long as you need me to, but one thing that I want to mention is one of the greatest blessings I had. I had that time with those bush pilots, right?
Yeah.
But I had time that I sat in campfires, in a tent, eating with men for 1 to 2 weeks at a time, and it's amazing how vulnerable men will get with one another. I call the campfire the hunter's altar,
Yeah.
right? And so I know these guys so well. And then and particularly because we went through some adversity together, we had to trust one another, we had to rely on one another. And so then the things that they've shared, and I've learned, if there's anything that I've learned about, and this is why Isaac, after he crashed his plane, the scripture says the greatest among you will be the servant of all. After he crashed his plane, he apologized to us and he said, I'm so sorry, guys. I promise we're going to get you out of here today, because we had like 1.5 feet of snow. We spent 2 days clearing the runway with a Rubbermaid tote. It was 0 degrees. I mean, we were out of food, but his thought went to us.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I've found with men is vulnerability. If you want to communicate with men, is to be vulnerable with them.
Yeah.
And it took me 25 years to recognize that there's still a wounded, or an insecure little boy in every man.
1,000%.
At the root, he's in there, right? And I've seen that enough to know that if I go to speak to 100,000 people, or 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever, I know that everybody in that audience has vulnerabilities. And when we're strong enough to be vulnerable ourselves, it's just like the shroud, the shield, the armor
Yeah.
can relax a little bit.
Yeah.
And I believe that's why God's put me in this position to go into the wilderness for so many years, to be reduced enough to where my pride is tucked down enough. I still deal with pride. Billy Molls is a pretty stout dude. He could do a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
pretty hardy, but I've been reduced. Physically, I can't do what I used to be able to do, and it's frustrating. But that's really caused me to. It's chiseled away at my pride, and that's allowed me to serve others, to recognize my own frailties and my own weakness, and to rely on Christ. And that when we are weak, He is truly strong. Once we know the truth will set us free. Is that we can't do it all, and we've got to, and that's what a surrendered life looks like, is to do everything to do more. At least I wouldn't say that I do everything, but to seek to glorify Him and not ourselves.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Man, so just a few more things as we start to wrap up. We're talking on this topic, and I know it's got to be Jesus related. But if you were to leave something more specific to your children, you couldn't leave money, you can't leave any assets. You can leave more so a mindset, a philosophy, a principle, a rule. What would you leave? What do you think would be the most valuable thing you could leave your children?
Um, Probably Matthew 6:33. Love God above all things. No, no, I'm sorry. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things shall be added unto you. Yeah, that's it. That's a really good question.
And from your experience, I'm not a parent, but from your experience on trying to imprint, and I don't like to call it more so a religion, more so a relationship, but to show that relationship, that intimacy with Christ. Do you find, is it more of you preaching it to your children, or do you have to show it?
Yeah, you got to walk it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's hard, and I've failed at that. I've failed at that many times, but absolutely. Some things I was just in New Mexico and at a Christian outreach event, and a pastor shared me this. Some things can't be taught, they have to be caught. And that's exactly what Kurt and Isaac did for me is they walked it.
yeah,
They didn't preach. They didn't say anything. It was through their actions, and it took consistency, and it took years. And not that they were the only ones. And I know the one thing that I struggle with is impatience on that stuff. Like I'm too prideful that, when I think I know something and I'm pretty sure that I'm right, I'll admit there's times where I try to cram it down people's throat. Not so much like, hey, look at the Bible here, but I'm like, gosh, don't you get it?
yeah,
And so I believe with kids, what I've learned is consistency. Don't tell, show.
yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. One or two more hunting questions. What's the hardest animal to field dress from your hunting experience?
Probably well a moose, just the sheer size,
Yeah,
and most of those like a moose, you got to butcher it, right? The fastest I've ever butchered a moose is an hour and a half because you got to butcher it where it lays. We're not
yeah,
where I anyway. We're not using four wheelers. I've used some boats sometimes we're hunting a river, but usually we're packing them up to a ridge uphill, usually to a flat top ridge where an airplane can land. So. Yeah, a moose, just the sheer size. One hind quarter can weigh as much as 180 pounds, and so you're packing that out.
that's
Yeah,
insane. How many packs do you typically got to do for a moose? Is it 4 to 6? Is it 6 to 8 for packing
like
all it out?
10,
10.
10. Yeah, I've heard of guys doing them in 7. Maybe, but I mean, those are booner. Those are King Kong size packs. Yeah,
Yeah,
so about 10 is pretty comfortable, or not really comfortable, but that's more manageable. Yeah, you've got about pushing about an 800 to 1,000 pounds of meat, hide, cape, and antlers.
yeah.
All that stuff
So that's 5 to 10
roughly.
trips back to the bush plane.
Yeah, oh, yeah. You're looking at 10
And
trips.
will the
Yeah.
plane be able to fit it all, or does it have to do 2 or 3 trips?
Yeah, it'll do. I mean, you could probably squeeze a whole moose in one, but that'd be too much weight unless you had super, super long runway. So, yeah, usually 2, maybe 3 trips, depending on the kind of runway they've got to work
So it's
with.
almost a whole day to pack out a moose.
Oh, yeah, I had one. Yeah, it was a big moose. I don't really know why. I guess I was young and ambitious, but it was 3 miles away from our airstrip. So it took me and the Packer. The Packer did a lion's share of the load, no doubt. That took 2.5 days
Wow.
to butcher it out, just pack it.
And no bears ever have messed with your guys' kills, or even I see you guys stay in
Oh,
these
yeah.
camps in the middle of nowhere. Like bears don't ever come and mess. You guys got food.
Oh yeah, they'll mess with you. Oh yeah, they do it. They do it a lot.
You give a
And one
warning
thing you
shot.
should know. I'm sorry.
Do you give a warning shot, or they're messing with your camp? What do you do?
Yeah. Yep. You kind of how do you learn? You learn the behaviors of bears. Typically, a rifle blast will scare them away. Pistol fire will usually it's just as likely to agitate them as it is to scare them. Probably more likely to agitate them. So yeah, I just try to use a rifle shot, and then if they don't go away after that, then you're probably going to have problems. Um, and one thing to know, like on my films, I'm filming that all myself.
I see it. I'm like, how is he filming this? He's getting great shots, and then you got to carry a rifle, especially with some of those massive brown bears. You got to put a couple shots into it. I'm like, just the accuracy of all the filming, but it makes it even more entertaining because it's very personable. You know what I mean? If the filming's getting done, it's just you and the other hunters or the other hunter that's with you.
Yeah, it's more raw. And so I don't get a lot of that stuff. Like when a bear comes into camp, then I kind of got to go on more into guide mode than cameraman mode. So yeah, I don't capture a lot of that stuff, but it doesn't happen that, it happens more than you see. It doesn't happen every year. We'll have problem every season. I'll have some sort of problem with bears. But that is one of the things that I recognize. People would always tell me is like, oh, have you ever thought about bringing a cameraman with you? And I believe uh, that would hurt the quality or the uniqueness of my films,
Yeah.
is it wouldn't be quite as authentic.
Yeah.
Because like as long as it's me just filming it, I'm not thinking about it at all. It's just kind of second nature, right? And that just started as home video, and eventually, I just liked it, got better at it.
Yeah.
And what I realized in that, where I started getting some success and better reviews on my filming, is when I was more vulnerable.
Yes.
When I talked about life, what I was experiencing, when I would talk to my hunters, like, hey, like, how do you feel like right now? Pull out the camera when you're hurting, rather than like, okay, we're hiking up the mountain. There's the sheep. Oh, we're gonna go over here. There he is. Boom, he's dead. Well, here's Joe with his trophy animal.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, we're at the plane and the airplane's flying away.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole lot more to it that goes into that.
Yeah.
And then once it took me like 12 years to figure that out. Like, hey, the more I'm just kind of me,
Yeah.
the more people seem to like it. And it's not that it's anything me. I just think that you get to know somebody who they truly are. When you know somebody and it's like you're in a relationship and it's like all of a sudden it's kind of like there's a wall there. You're not knowing them any better, right?
Yeah.
They're not opening up. They're not vulnerable to you. It's kind of like, whoa, are we wasting each other's time here? I don't know if I'm kind of getting you. It's like,
Yeah.
you gotta kind of go next level, right? I don't have any buddies. I got some really good friends.
Yeah.
I don't need drinking buddies anymore. I want a good friends. Like, hey man, this is what's going on. Can I get your take? Like, what do you think? And a guy that's Proverbs written right here, Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron.
I was just thinking that. I was
Man,
like, definitely iron sharpens iron.
yeah, oh man, I got a guy I call just pretty much every morning,
Yeah.
and I mean, he will tell me, he'll call me out, man. He's like, you're being a
Yeah.
whatever it is that day, and I'll do the same things, like, dude, you're way off. You need to apologize, man. You were wrong. You need to repent on that one. And he'll do the same thing to me. And but yeah, the more that we're just authentic, because if we're trying to be somebody that we're not, we'll never have any equilibrium, right?
Yeah.
If we're trying to please the world and please man, we know it deep down in our soul.
Yeah. Can't
and we all do it. I'm sorry.
You can't serve two masters. The Bible says. You'd probably know the verse, but I have a general idea of it.
Yep, that's in Matthew 6 as well. Yep, you can't serve money, God and mammon. Yeah, money and possessions. Yeah, I think it's probably 6:30. I need to write that one on my walls here too. But yeah, and that is the truth. And we all do it. We're all guilty of it at times. And yeah, and sometimes God, I believe He definitely allows things in our lives to draw us closer to Him. To refine us. Yeah. And that's what makes it the greatest adventure there is.
Yeah, it is.
And it's just like when I look at it when I'm guiding, those guys, they've got to trust me. They've got to have faith in me. When I was young, they didn't have much faith in me, but seeing is believing. And for me, I tried to prove the Bible wrong, right? The more I tested, and the Bible tells it, test, particularly on to test the spirits, right? So whatever spirit you're being led by, you should test it. If it God will not be mocked. We reap what we sow. If we sow of the flesh, we will reap of the flesh. Yeah. If you're sowing, if it's all about money, you'll reap material things. But what good are material possessions if a man loses his soul?
Yeah.
Right. Then and so I believe a dream is a good thing, right? But if your dream is of the flesh, which I've had many of them, just like me shooting that buck, that's what changed me, is I recognized that was emptiness.
Yeah.
What I was sowing to reap, what I thought was going to be some kumbaya light switch moment of my life, it was filled with darkness. Where those other moments that I talk about, when I went through depression, that led to light.
Yeah.
God was there. He was with me in that. I firmly believe that. And I prayed for that, that day, those days leading up to the moose cow and calf.
Mm.
And I often thought, like, gosh, did God orchestrate that number of days, that 7 days that I was alone? Did He orchestrate that cow and that yearling coming by me every day? And I believe He absolutely could have. Maybe He did. I mean, I know He could have. But what I'm maybe led to believe more so now, and this is 15 years later, is that those miracles are around us every day.
Mm-hmm.
We come to the end of our ways. We find the folly of our flesh, of our pride, of our ego, and we get reduced and we get still enough. Psalms 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God."
Mm.
Another translation, "Cease striving, know that I am God. Lay it down, know that I am God." Is just be wait and be patient on Him. I think that those miracles, God's invisible attributes, are clearly seen by what is made. They are around us all the time, but the world has us so focused on all these external things, these flashing lights
Mm.
that we think are great: the money, the new car, the position, the title, the sex, the woman, the man, the this, the that. Those are all
Yeah,
distractions.
carnal.
Those are all distractions, and they are empty. It is a lifeless well that will never satisfy us.
Mm. What do you think Matthew 6:33, that is that your favorite verse? Is that like your life
Uh,
verse?
it's a good one that I keep, and here's why I come back to it: simplification. That's what I love. Keep it simple. In Alaska, I have so little stuff. All these guys, you'll probably see these pack dumps. They have gizmos and
Yeah,
gadgets and the newest and the latest and the greatest. I don't want that crap. Yeah, every once in a while I'll try some, but I usually got to let my hunters test it out for about 2, 3 years
yeah,
because I want something that I know. When I go track a wounded grizzly bear in the brush, I don't want a brand new rifle. I want the one that I've been toting around since I was 6 years old, back on the farm. That's the rifle I want, so that it's automatic,
yeah.
right? So yeah, just seek ye first the kingdom of God. Just simplify it. Just get down. What is the one thing that I need to do right now? And there is so often in life that I feel most at peace when I can shut off the noise.
Yes.
Because when you're struggling and when your back's against the wall, there is nothing else. Just whatever is going to come at me next, that's all
Mm.
you're focused on. But the world has got us spinning in circles, and I've done it. I've spun plates, and it usually, once one crashes, they all start to crash, right? And so we spin the plates, we try to keep it all together, and we realize that we can't. And then when we come to surrender, boom, that's where the light switch moment happens. That's when God's there. He's always with us. He's always there, but we just got to get out of his way. And I'm still trying to figure that out,
That's
brother.
our battle every day, man. Getting out of his way, because we
Yep,
all.
yep.
This verse I always keep. I think I read it this morning. I try to read a proverb every day. So today's the 24th. I try to line it up, and I want to say Proverbs 24 somewhere's in there. It's His ways and His thoughts are above our thoughts. And I know there's different verses throughout the Bible that have that, but sometimes when I'm trying to explain to I've had friends and really close people to me that have lost their parents, and we're in our 20s, and you really hope to not lose your parents in your 20s. We still feel like kids. You know what I mean? And we probably are. You know what I mean? So, but sometimes when I'm trying to explain to them, when they're like, "Man, I feel like I just can't have faith anymore. My mom's gone, or my brother's gone, or my sister's gone, my dad's gone." Even losing siblings at a young age, and I'm like, and I try to empathize, but it's hard to empathize when I haven't lost anybody really close to me. But and I'm trying to think, because the question will be like, well, why would God let this happen? And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, there's a verse where it's like, to live is Christ and to die is gain. But I don't think anybody wants to hear that when their mom dies. And I've tried to gently package that with the right delivery. But I also think of His ways are above our ways, His thoughts are above our thoughts. There's verses, because I've been a 1099 since I was 18 years old, 100% commission. Grew up really hard and transitioning into building something for myself. And there's been days and weeks and years of not knowing if I was gonna have growth in the business, or make the franchise that we're partnered with, make them more money, revenue growth, and things like that, or even first starting out, if I was gonna make any money. You know what I mean? Just so many weeks of like just deals canceling, deals coming off, and things like that. And one verse I always came back to, and I try to share with these people is, and you would probably know it. I'm bad at the quoting, but it's God's it has to be Psalms. I want to say it's Psalms, and he talks about, look at the birds, I take care of the birds. Look at the flowers, I take care of the flowers. Look at the trees, and I'd always tell everybody in the office and people around me, it's like, one place I go back to is, I'll go outside, and if the skies aren't red and I hear birds and there's not lava coming down from the sky and things aren't going to absolute chaos, because you hear stuff about, people get very political in the economy and things that we have to be real and look at facts, but I live more by faith than the facts of this world, and that's kind of what's helped me. But what I'm trying to get at here is, what are your thoughts on, trying to share that with people that are asking, why God? Why would God allow this?
Dang, dude. Yeah, that's a tough question. And I in the well, Romans 8:28, all things work for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. It's there's we're not immune to bad things. And I personally I don't. I still ask myself the same questions. I don't know what verse it is, but it says, "Without faith, it's impossible to please God." And I don't know why those things happen, but they do. And in a certain way, it makes it like the greatest adventure of all. When you're going through them, it's impossible. I mean, that's not anything that I would say, hey, and embrace the suck, as they say, or, it's an event. I mean, there's nothing you could say. I don't know what I would say to somebody in that person other than, can I pray for you? And just pray that with God all things are possible, that this somehow God's presence and his love will be demonstrated through this somewhere down the line. And then the thing I guess that has gotten me through some things is knowing this, that one day you will be able to help someone else out who's had the same struggle.
Mm,
That would probably be the only thing that I could really give them, or that's probably all that I would really
yeah.
share with somebody. But I get it. I had a guy that went through a divorce, and he told me that he said a pastor. I don't have that one on YouTube yet. It's called "He's Never Lost." When you're hunting an old mature animal, we shot this big moose, and I told him, my hunter, I'm like, I already know what he's going to do. He's going to do this and that. I said, this bull's been hunted before. We were near a mine. We were pretty close to a road. And I said, we got to do this, or otherwise we're never going to get him. And we got him. Right. And it was a great hunt for me because, um, I know that 5-10 years earlier we'd have never gotten that moose, right? But it was all the mistakes that I've made and my experience allowed us to get that moose. And so this guy, he went through a divorce. His wife cheated on him, blindsided him with this divorce. But a pastor told him he was ready to kill this other guy, and he's like, I was bound and determined I was going to go kill that guy. And his brother talks him off the ledge, and then this pastor says, I know you don't see it right now, Doug, but one day you're going to share this story and it's going to give life to somebody else.
Yeah.
And so then I shared, and I'm like, dude, he's sitting there telling me this story. We're in the tent, and I'm like, dude, that time is now. I said, because we're going to put your story on this film and you can share it with the world. And that's what he learned, is it drew him closer to God during that process, during that hardship. He's just like, he goes, I wish it wouldn't happen. He said, I made mistakes, but God is graceful. He gives mercy, right? He's merciful. And, he's just grown through it. And the joy that it gave him and the fulfillment, like he was a little bit apprehensive at first, but I mean, it didn't take long. He's like, dude, I'll share that story.
Yeah.
I'll tell it as raw as you want, because you're right. I do believe this is my opportunity. He called me and he said, hey, I want to come hunting with you. And I'm like, hey, I'm totally booked. Long story short, it was COVID year, had somebody cancel. And I'm like, hey, can you be here in 5 days?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm there. And he came and
Love
to
it.
share that story. So yeah, I don't know why that stuff has to happen, but in the same token, I guess it's maybe this, and this isn't something that I would share with somebody who's going through that trial at that time, right? You got to have some discernment. But like, if it weren't for the hardships, if there was no bad, there would
Be no
be no
good.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, not saying that that's necessarily why God created it that way, but made it that way. But it's like our sinful and our fallen nature, we take things for
Yeah.
granted, right? And so I don't know if for some reason, I, God's ways are not man's ways. I think you just said that, and I'd say that's at some point. He's sovereign. He's all powerful, all knowing. He's everywhere. At some point, we've got to surrender that to Him and recognize that it not everything is going to make sense, and at times we have to walk by faith and not by sight.
Amen.
Hard, 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 hard,
Amen.
for sure.
What's your favorite dish? What's the favorite food, favorite animal to eat?
Dull sheep.
Dull sheep. How do you like to
Yeah.
prepare it?
There's only one way, brother. That's on a fire, an open fire.
Okay.
You just get a bunch of dead willow and you put it on there. Dull sheep ribs are the best because they're fatty. You're
Yeah.
out when we're sheep hunting. You're only eating freeze dried food, lean and sugar, just junk,
Yeah.
right? Just packaged foods. And then so then you're all tired. And this is another thing. If you're a professional, take this to your team. All right, this is something I've just came up with. If you're a professional, a true professional, you should know what your clients want, and they don't even know it exists. They would never even think of it. If you're a true professional, you know what your clients want more than they do, right? And so my hunters, we shoot a sheep. We're hiking 3, 4, 5 days up in the wilderness. We get a sheep, and their first question, we're butchering the sheep, and they're like, "Oh, can we go back down to the valley to the tundra and go hunt caribou?" Yeah, we can do that, but our sheep hunt ain't done. We're gonna pack the. And when I was young, I would race down there as fast as I could and go whack a caribou, maybe a grizzly bear, try to get a wolf, whatever. Now what I do is I tell them, no, 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 no. We're still sheep hunting. We got one more day of sheep hunting left. Or well, what are you talking about? We're gonna pack this thing out. Tomorrow we're gonna spend an hour. We're gonna gather enough willow brush, build a fire, and then you get some green willows. After the coals are burned down, you put green willows on there so it won't burn, and then you lay those ribs on that fire, and we're gonna sit here and we're gonna eat sheep ribs until our guts burst, until we're farting like Mad
Yeah.
Men. And then 5 years later, 10 years later, when I see that hunter, when I visit him somewhere, and you know what he's gonna talk about? Do you remember how good those sheep ribs
Yeah.
tasted? I'm like, yeah, yeah, I do. I remember that. Those are the things that they remember. That's the stuff they value. Yeah, they go there for the sheep, and the adventure, and you shoot the sheep, but just that stillness, right? Just that simplicity, just to eat that flesh, and you're
Yeah.
hungry and you're malnourished and you're wore down, and you just sit there and you savor that moment and you just savor that day. Then the next day, then we'll hike out and then we'll go after caribou.
Yeah. That's good. Do you have a favorite movie? I know it's off topic, but I always ask everybody. I like movies.
Ah, I like The Godfather. Lonesome Dove.
Lonesome Dove.
Lonesome Dove's probably have you
I
watched
don't
that?
think so.
Oh brother. Oh
Good
man.
movie.
6 hours long.
Oh
It's
God.
kind of like me. It's long winded. It's a mini series. Yeah, Lonesome Dove has got to be on there for sure. Alone in the Wilderness. That's a documentary.
Okay.
It's about this old dude. He builds a log cabin in the wilderness of Alaska. You'll find it. But yeah, really mainstream movies. Yeah, they don't make
Have
them
you
like
seen
they
The
used to.
Revenant?
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't bad.
Is that kind of pretty accurate? Like with bears?
Yeah, it wasn't too far off. Yeah, I can't. I thought it was going to be totally cockamamie. I don't just remember it just too much just yet. There was a few things that were unrealistic, but as far as the bear's behavior, but there was a few things that I would say probably weren't far off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, but an interesting story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Definitely. Man,
Yeah.
the only other question I had was, so for my long term vision of coming up there, and hopefully you're still guiding. You know what I mean? I imagine hopefully within the next 10 to 15 years I can come out, and because I imagine there's like a wait list and different things like that to do the hunts. When you get a ticket, or is that separate from a guiding package? Do you have to find a place to get like the tickets? Like, is that something when people get a guide package through you? Do you assist them with helping them find tickets, or does that include
Yeah, like the
the
tags to
tags?
hunt the animal. Yep, most of these are going to be over the counter. When they're extremely remote, you basically just buy a tag for the most part. I mean, you buy them
Or
at
Doll
Walmart.
sheep? Is that some of the hardest tags to get?
Yeah, yep. Some areas, an outfitter will have an area and he's allotted a number of tags. And so if you book through the outfitter, you'd automatically,
Oh,
you
quite
could
cool.
buy those tags. But for the most part, they're just over the counter. There are certain areas, typically areas near roads where the access is easy, then they limit the tags so that there's not so many people in there or hunting, that they're not, too much pressure taking too many animals. But then when you get very remote, basically the remoteness limits the number of people that come in there. So yeah, the tag is pretty much the easy part.
So when someone gets a package with you, they can pretty much get a tag and set this package up, and the whole thing can get done within a year or two, or is it a longer wait
Yeah.
list?
Yeah, usually a wait list will be like year to 3 years. It all kind of depends on the market and kind of the type, whatever you're hunting. But yeah, usually at least a year out.
If somebody wants to do like all, I see you. Some of these guys will do like three. They'll do the sheep, then they'll get either like a caribou, and then they'll get a bear. Is that
Yep.
that's something that's like a 1 to 3 year wait type of deal?
Yeah, and then there's some guys, not everybody does, obviously. Some guys will come for a sheep. They'll have a sheep tag, caribou tag, and a grizzly tag, and they might not get anything. But yeah, yep. So most the different areas, some areas you can combine species. In some areas, not every area does all the different animals,
Yeah,
or do they exist. But yep, it's possible to do combination hunts and for sure. Yep.
awesome. Is there anything you want to shout out for yourself? You.
Yeah, I guess just if people are interested, you can find me on YouTube. I've got a men's ministry. It's called Trust the Guide. You'll find that on my YouTube channel, Modern Day Mountain Man. So if you look that up, you'll find me. If you Google search, you'll find my website. But yeah, probably 2/3 of my content is not on YouTube. It's just on digital download or DVD. I'm still kind of a dinosaur.
Yeah.
I still do DVDs, but I got a lot of guys, 40 and older and hunting camps that live in the wilderness and stuff that still watch that. But yeah, I just like to encourage. I appreciate what you're doing with people, just trying to help them out and just share. Yeah, just be transformed. Don't conform to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind
Yeah.
and knowing that unique facet that you've been. Um, at times I think we all struggle, that uniqueness about us that we're self-conscious of. I think oftentimes that's exactly, we've got to be true to ourselves in that and share that in the world. And in doing so, we'll also find that some things of ourselves aren't good. There's selfishness in it. There's you know you've got to try fail. You've got a lot of the dreams that I've chased and I achieved, every dream I ever had as a kid, I've achieved that.
Yeah.
It's happened, right? And some of them, they came up empty, and when they, the Bible would call it of the flesh.
Yeah.
Basically, if it's selfish in nature, you will figure it out in about 2 seconds,
Yeah.
like that deer that I was telling you about. Whereas when it's God ordained, you will do something and you won't even like know that you did it, and or won't even know what you've done, but you see the fulfillment, or that you give life into somebody, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa,
Mm.
whoa, what's this? And then you realize, man, that's that's the ticket.
Yeah.
God, okay, all right. So if I do this, I'm giving to somebody else. All right. So then you really start paying attention, and you kind of get out of God's way a little bit. So I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, man. I'm 45 years old. I still got Lord willing, I still got a long ways to go. But yeah, yeah.
Let's go. Well, Billy, I very, very much appreciate you. We're 2 hours in because hour and a half recording and a half hour of technical difficulties. So definitely owe you, man. So hopefully one day, knock on wood, I can come out there with one of my buddies or something. We can do a hunt. So, but keep watching your content, and thank you for being a blessing. And anybody that's watching this, want to give you an opportunity. If you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, I just don't know what's going on with my life, and I don't have an exquisite prayer for you. I don't have anything exquisite I could say to you right now. But I would just tell you to just close your eyes, and if you want to accept Jesus Christ into your life, I would just say, I believe that Jesus, you are my Lord and Savior, and you died for my sins, and I want you to be the Lord of my life. You know what I mean? The Savior of my life. So if you watched all the way through and you want that opportunity, and you want to know your salvation and things like that, I feel like we can't waste my favorite parts of this has definitely been the Lord, because he has literally saved my life in more ways than I can even count. You know what I mean? There's been so many mornings I've hit my knees and not knowing how things were going to play out and make it. It's not been the wilderness, the Alaskan wilderness, but it's been the business world wilderness, which can be scary at times.
Yeah.
So,
And if I might be so bold, I would just, you know, I think if men particularly, if they recognized, I don't know if the challenge is it is, the Bible says we're to carry our cross daily,
yeah,
and that meek is not weak. I just heard a guy, the Roman, I don't know what it is, but the Greek word for meekness has something to do with taming a wild stallion.
yeah,
Right? It's we're all masters to, or slaves to somebody. Somebody is our master, and if we're living out without Christ, our sin is our master.
mm,
Whatever it is, greed, lust, addiction, insecurity, pride, shame, whatever it is, that is our master. That is what's directing our steps.
yeah,
Right? And it comes to like total repentance and submission, and that's not a word that we like to
mm,
hear, right? Unless we read it in Ephesians, where it says that the wife is supposed to submit to the man, but the man, as the leader, uh, he is responsible to God,
yeah,
right? And so we're all slaves to somebody, and so it's scary, and it's something that we don't want to do, but it just comes to that point of repentance and submission, that is like, I've done it my way, and I've loused it up, there is no, I don't believe that there is an easy way to truly come to Christ. It's got to be through brokenness and surrender, and when we fully surrender, He'll be there just like that.
amen, amen.
All right, I love you, brother. It's
Love you
been a
too.
pleasure.
Let's go, man. Have a blessed day.
All right.